deadliest, most radio one.
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
I was familiar with the band that you were in back in the 90s. Well, I guess you guys were formed even well before then, right? The Blonz?
Yeah, Blonz, yeah, for sure.
So give me a little bit of history, because, I mean, I just discovered the band right when you guys issued your debut. I think it was like 1990 or something like that. But you guys have been around for a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's funny, that band was actually put together pretty quick, and it was only about a year into it, actually, a year and a half into it, when we finally got approached by labels. So it was like, it actually moved pretty quick, and then we stuck it out even after the fold, you know, when everybody else just kind of got tanked, you know, for the new wave of music that was coming in. But we stayed together for a little bit, and you know, tried our best to maintain it. But the main lead guitar player, Steve Taylor, I still work with. We have a Aerosmith tribute thing that I've been doing for the past better part of a decade with him. So, I mean, me and him still actually work together. And we had done a couple other bands after Blonz too, like some different projects. But so, yeah, I mean, that band came together kind of quick, actually.
So it comes together pretty quick. How much promotion and touring and stuff did you guys get to do behind that record?
You know, not a whole lot. Not as much as we wanted to. I mean, we ended up playing with a bunch of, you know, good acts, you know, the Poison and Extreme, and, you know, the Warrant, did a lot with Warrant, and Don Dokken when he was doing his solo album. You know, we got out there and we got moving around, and then, you know, like I said, you know, when the new music scene kind of kicked in, it wasn't just us, everybody just kind of lost their steam, you know what I mean?
Right. And I think Brendan O'Brien worked on that record with you guys, right?
Yes, he did.
Engineered it, which is ironic considering what you were just talking about, you know, that the musical climate shifted, and he was kind of part of that, even the new.
Yeah, he was actually semi kind of cutting his teeth when he was working with us. You know, he was, I wouldn't say new in the industry or young in the industry, but you know, he was still, you know, doing engineering work, not so much producing, you know.
Right. And what was that experience like, you know, working with him? I know you said he was fairly new to
Brendan. Yeah. Brendan was awesome, dude. You know, but Brendan was like, you know, he was kind of the guy, you know, doing the cutting and the splicing. You know, it was more Phil Ehart and Steve Walsh, you know, that were doing the producing. But working with Brendan was great because we all kind of knew each other anyway in the Atlanta scene, you know. So we were just all buds to begin with, you know what I mean? So being around Brendan was just like being around one of the guys, you know. I wasn't really as familiar with him leaving the studio as I was, you know, before going into the studio with him, but I knew him, you know.
Right.
But yeah, great experience.
Nice.
Really, and that was my first record making experience too. You know, you got to remember I was a kid just out of high school, basically. You know, I graduated in '88. You know, and then right at the turn, it was actually '89, December of '89, right before the turn of the year into '90 was when the deals started coming to us. So, you know, there was pre-production and stuff like that going on, like. You know, I'd been out of high school for a year, just over a year. So it was like, for me, it was like a huge wave of, you know, reality and fantasy all rolled up into one ball of coat hangers, you know.
So it must have been like the anxiety levels must have been through the roof, huh?
Yeah, I mean, you know, but it's funny at that age, you're just so carefree that you probably don't realize that what you're experiencing is anxiety. You just see it as something else, you know. I don't know what it would be, but yeah, you know, you kind of overlook some of that. You're not old enough and wise enough to really know what's actually happening. I mean, you do have an idea of what's going on, but it doesn't, you know, sink its claws into you at that age, you know.
Yeah. And then I think you know, you mentioned you also have been doing like a Aerosmith tribute band and stuff like that. I imagine that's kind of like a regional thing that you guys do, huh?
It actually turned out kind of worldly. It started out regional in the southeast, and then we started through a friend of mine that became a pretty high up booking agent for Royal Caribbean, called us because they do a lot of tributes on Royal Caribbeans. And we ended up having this really long-lived this long-lived relationship with Royal Caribbean. So we traveled. We went literally around the world, so, because those ships pretty much go everywhere. So we've pretty much kind of been everywhere. So it turned out to be this, let's knock this out and see what it does. And then it started kind of spreading through the Southeast. And next thing you know, we're, halfway across the Pacific, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it was cool. Nice. It still is cool. I mean, it's still a good bread and butter situation, you know what I mean? It's kind of like the light switch gig, you know what I mean? You can go in and flip the switch and it's a go, So
now, how busy are you with that throughout the year? Is that like a recurring thing, just several times throughout the year kind of thing?
Oh, yeah. Actually, several times throughout each month. We play a lot. When it's really pumping, doing 2 or 3 shows a month, if not a little bit more. And then if you're doing cruises, you're gone for a week. You come home for a week, and you back out on another ship for another week. Excuse me. So that happens. But, then again, with everything that, the elephant in the room of what's been happening on the planet here the last couple of years is it's slowed everybody down, you know what I mean? But yeah, we still pump, we're still playing.
Cool. And name of the band really quick, because, you got to plug that.
Yeah, Pandora's Box.
Oh, okay. Nice. And I imagine...
The Ultimate Aerosmith Tribute.
Okay. I imagine you got, like, a Facebook page and all that business.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, you can YouTube some stuff and all kinds of stuff. So.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, it's cool.
And then at some point, and I don't know, maybe you can help me with the timetable here, but I think you did some work with George Lynch. I think it might have been even under the name Lynch Mob, which I think he's kind of stepped away from. But,
it was.
It was. How did you connect with George, and what was the length of time you worked with him? I imagine it's mostly doing like the live gig deal.
Yeah, it's all live stuff. I'm actually playing with him again March 25th in Chicago it's a Doc and George Lynch show. So I'm doing that show with him the 25th. I've been on and off with George. It's been, been better part of 3 years ago, I think. Mm-hmm. Something like that. My timetable is probably not perfect, but
right.
All live stuff. And I got that connection through Blando, Will Hunt and Blando, who are and Slaughter and Vince Neil, and Blando's the guitar player for Slaughter, has been for a very long time, and really both those guys, lifelong friends of mine. We've all known each other before any of us had record deals or any of us were in big bands or anything like that. We were all 3 of us were playing like in circuit bands, and I knew them because they were my Florida brothers. When every time we go down in the Florida area, if they weren't out playing somewhere, they were usually at home, so that's when you'd run into either Will or Blando. But Blando got the call from Lynch and said he was looking for a singer, so Blando gave him my name, and that's how it happened. Popped it off like that.
Wow. So that's just been an ongoing thing. So he just kind of slips you in when he needs somebody to do some shows and stuff, huh?
Yeah, he's got a collection of a few of us on his shelf. You know what I mean? He'll call this guy or that guy, or it's if whoever's available. You know what I mean? And now that he's turned out to where this is more of a musical experience and not so much the name Lynch Mob, it's made it a lot easier for him to just kind of flip through his catalog and see who's available, who's capable of doing the show.
Sure.
And I haven't played with him. It's been over a year now, but I got the call about a week or 2 ago.
Nice.
So, yeah.
So what's he have?
It's always good to get a phone call from George Lynch, man. That's kind of a no-brainer,
Sure. Now, as far as that, how many songs does he have you learn and stuff? I'm sure...
Well, that's funny you said that, because for me, it's not learning a whole bunch of them, because I know so many of them. Right. You know what I mean? Like any of the Doc, and I don't even need to listen to. You know what I mean? It's like, he'll send me a list, and, oddly, and funny enough, the first show I ever did with him, we had discussed the show, we had discussed, the flights and this, that, and the other, and we got off the phone, and I had to turn around and call him back, which for me was like very, very interesting watching me trying to go, should I call this guy back? I mean, this is George Lynch. Do I call him back? You know what I mean?
Right.
So I just did. I was like, well, I got to call him back. So I called him back. And he's like, yeah, what's up? And I said, we might want to figure out what it is we're doing. And he goes, pretty good point you got there. He says, I'll shoot you over some stuff. And he sent me over a list of, I think it was like 30 songs, 40 songs. He said, this is basically like what I may or may not do, and then I texted him. I said, that's all good. Can we narrow it down a little more to like this first show as to what we are going to do,
Right.
Give me like a ballpark. And so he sent me an LOL, and he's like, yeah, you're right about that too, so let me send you, so he knocked it down to, it was like 20 songs, 15 songs, and, over half of them I already knew. So it's just the obscure Lynch Mob ones, like off the albums that not everybody's familiar with.
Sure.
It's like, even as a fan, I didn't realize they had, much more records just in the first two. So
Right.
There's a few spot songs here and there off of these, like Sun Red Sun, Brotherhood. There's a couple that we'll do that, are off of both of those records too. So, but other than that, I mean, it's like, Ruben, you would know most of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You'd be like,
right.
wow, cool. And like a good 35%, 40% of the show is Dawkins. So
Nice. Just out of curiosity, what's your favorite tune to perform as far as from the Lynch or Lynch Mob or Dawkins?
When Heaven Comes Down is hands down like my favorite.
Nice.
Because I've always loved that song, Dawkins. When Heaven Comes Down is one for me. For Lynch Mob, it's Sweet Sister Mercy is a great one. I love that one a whole lot. And there's one off of Sun Red Sun called Believers of the Day. Dude, you got to listen to that tune.
Okay.
It's killer. I love that freaking song. I loved the Robert Mason record too. But yeah, like Sweet Sister Mercy is definitely one for me. And there's actually a couple that are more of the more recent Lynch stuff, like I said, like Believers of the Day on the Sun Red Sun. Then I think the one on Brotherhood is called Main Offender. Dude, another killer tune.
Right.
So, and we, every now and then we'll do those, you know what I mean? I think we're actually doing Believers of the Day. I think it's on the list for the Chicago show.
Oh, nice. Cool.
Yeah.
So, I think we better get to Resist and Bite, because that was the whole, lots of good stuff here. But Resist and Bite, I think the one thing as a fan of Tommy Skeoch, I know he's made an effort to do stuff in the past. Almost there, not quite. But with Resist and Bite, I think that really hit the spot from the get-go. How did this all come together, and how did you get approached to be part of this? I assume you probably knew Tommy a while back, or you guys will go back a little bit?
No, actually, I was the last piece of the puzzle. I was working a couple weeks prior to even getting the phone call. I was doing an acoustic thing with Frank. And I knew Frank from touring with Lynch and Tefla, being on a couple bills together. And then I got a call from Frank, which actually had nothing to do with Resist and Bite at all. It was just, for me, it was kind of a weird little thing that happened. And 2 weeks after doing this acoustic thing with Frank Hannon, I got home, and then I got a phone call from Dave Parks, who is the drummer for Resist and Bite. And he's actually the guy that put the whole band together. He actually worked with Tommy on the Skin Suit album. And then him and Steve Stokes wanted to put a band together, and then they called Tommy, because Dave was like, I should call Tommy and see if he's interested. Tommy was. Then they brought in Brian Powell, and then they had a singer. He's a good singer, too. A guy named Chris, and it just didn't, I guess it just didn't work out. They, just didn't work out. So they were looking for a new singer, and Dave Parks called Perry Richardson, who, now me and Perry go way back. Me and Perry were label mates when I had the Blonz, and he was in Firehouse.
Right.
Plus, we've known each other. I lived in Myrtle Beach for years. Me and my wife, had most of our children in Myrtle Beach. But Perry's from the Myrtle Beach area. So we knew each other anyway. I'm not from Myrtle Beach, but I spent a lot of time there. So Dave Parks actually called Perry Richardson, and like Blando did with Lynch, Perry did with Tommy, you know, and Dave, and was like, just call Nathan, you know. He's kind of the go-to guy right now, you know, but give him a call. And, you know, Dave's questions were the same as Lynch's, you know, isn't he kind of busy? And he's like, I don't know. You don't know till you call him, you know. So he called me and asked me if I was interested. And I said, of course I'm interested, you know, send me some music. And they sent me the stuff, and it was with the other singer. And I was like, can you send it to me without the other singer? And let me take a stab at some writing, because, you know, I would really like to, if you're going to make a unit, you know, I would like to, you know, take a shot at some of this and not just basically blindly sing what everybody else has created, you know. And they were all about it. So I said, my first stabs was Fate and Myth I'm Livin were the first two tunes that I wrote lyrics to music that had already been recorded, but had different vocal stuff on it.
Right.
And I had them remove that so I could take a shot at it, and they liked it. And then it just went to the moon from there, man. You know, I was the last guy to come into the program.
Wow. So that was the last piece of the puzzle, so to speak, then, huh?
Yeah. And my first encounter with Tommy, it was funny. The Blonz actually had a chance to tour with Tesla back when we were, you know, when our album came out back in the 90s.
Uh-huh.
But I was playing indoor soccer, which I wasn't supposed to be doing, but I just was. And I was doing a pickup game of indoor soccer and broke my leg and lost the tour because I broke my leg. But that would have been an encounter with Tommy, you know, and I missed that. Yeah, it was a little crazy, you know. And then touring with Don Dokken was another little kind of, you know, little omen there, you know. It's like I didn't meet Lynch, but I did tour with Dokken, you know, with Don. So, you know, I kind of kind of almost crossed paths with everybody involved that I kind of trickled back to in my future life, you know.
Sure.
But meeting Tommy actually drove up from Sarasota, Florida, which is where he lives now, because we were going to Nashville to do this first rehearsal and this first stab at those songs. He hadn't heard anything I'd written to these songs. He was curious, you know, and so we're driving to Nashville. I mean, this guy comes to my house, dude. I mean, it freaked me out, you know. It's like Tommy Skeoch is like coming to my house. I'm going to get in a car and ride in a car with him for 4 hours. And this is the first time I've ever met this man, you know. And he's like a huge idol, you know what I mean? Like, he's freaking Tommy Skeoch, you know what I mean?
Right.
So we spent 4 hours between Atlanta and Nashville in the car, and just fast brothers, became fast friends, brothers. And he's old school like me, so he had like this freaking sandwich bag full of CDs, you know what I mean? Like, just CD after CD. Well, listen to this riff. Well, listen to this riff. And we literally about had half the record by the time we got there, just humming melodies to the music that he had put out. And it was cool, because half of that record really is some riffs that are on a CD somewhere that I hummed out what you're hearing, basically. And then we pretty much wrote the other half together, musically and lyrically. I mean, I wrote the majority of 90% of the lyrics on the record, but half of them were written to songs that had already been recorded that the vocals were taken off, and I took my stab at it.
Right.
So.
Oh, nice. So
yeah, so it was a really cool way of coming about. And just when I finally met everybody, it was like, and, you know, it was just one of those things that clicked. You know, everybody can sit around and go, oh, it was meant to be, like we've known each other forever. You know, it's all that silliness, you know, but sometimes it's true. And there is an element of that to this unit.
Right.
You know, everybody just kind of clicks. We're all kind of on the same page. Like Tommy says, we're a great band until we start talking to each other. you know, but every band is like that, you know what I mean?
Right.
They're awesome until they start talking to each other.
Well, you know, and I know you guys had done some live performances, and then all of a sudden you guys get announced as being part of the this past Monsters of Rock cruise, which again, you know, everything seems to kind of link in a way because you already had that connection with Royal Caribbean. Tesla has a huge history with the Monsters of Rock cruise. You got Skio, you got you got the Pandora's Box tribute band that you're a part of, also Royal Caribbean. I mean, all that stuff kind of falls into place. It's kind of linked.
Yeah, right. It's kind of weird, dude. Another little side note on that, I'm unpacking my guitar for the first show at sound check when we get on the ship, and somebody comes up and taps me on my shoulder and says, Mr. Tyler. And I was like, I looked up, and it was my buddy from the Ukraine that was a drummer on one of the other ships, because we know these people from all these different ships, and he happened to be working on this particular ship during the Monsters of Rock cruise, and I freaked out, you know. It was like, here he is, and it ended up hanging out the whole week. Me and him and my wife, he pretty much every day after he got off work would come hang out with us, and it was cool, and he got to meet all these freaking rock and rollers. It was amazing, man. Yeah. So, yeah, it was, like you said, it's kind of funny how it all kind of intertwined, you know, into one final little, hey, check this out, this is kind of cool, you know.
Yeah, and so how did I mean, I guess, you know, like you mentioned or alluded to earlier, I mean, I think with what's going on in the world, the bands dropped out, bands weren't able to make it, and stuff like that. I mean, how did you guys get approached about being part of that? You know, I mean, I would assume it was a huge honor for you guys to be asked to be part of it.
Oh, for sure. We've got our guy, the eye in the sky, the man behind the curtain is Steve Smith, who's also owner of LOR Live Records. Smith has been very, very influential in a lot of these things being done by the band. And he's, just through Eddie Trunk was where it really started. Eddie has been highly campaigning for this band ever since it came out. Him and Tommy are old dear friends, and he just, when he put us in the top 10 picks of the year for him, I don't think he told me personally, he's like, I'm not doing that as a favor. I'm doing that because I really do like the record. He's like, I'm not going to lie to you or anybody else. I'm a big Tommy fan. I love his riffs. I love the way he writes. I love your lyrics. I love your singing. It's just a really good rock album. So I'm going to definitely campaign. He was there for the album release party, and that was Steve Smith's doing. Smith called him and said, I know you love Tommy. I'm going to get you down here. Whatever it takes, let's get you down here. Set that aside in your calendar, blah, blah, blah. And so, Eddie Trunk, Steve Smith, people like that are really the ones that campaigned and got a hold of, Larry, who's the main guy that runs like the Monsters of Rock cruises. I think he does Monsters on the Mountain, and he does a lot of other festival type events. And just being persistent, and they constantly badgering him and going, hey, listen, man, just letting you know we're available. Just letting you know we're available. And, if it wasn't for people dropping off, we wouldn't have been on it for sure, But some, where someone falls out, someone else gets filled in, and we just got the phone call. We're very blessed in that aspect. I'll give you another thing, even the COVID situation, as bad as it is, if it wasn't for COVID, we probably wouldn't have made this record because nobody had anything to do, you know what I mean? Right. And the studios in Nashville were like, basically standing out in the parking lot flipping a sign, you know what I mean? Hey, we need some freaking studio time, you know what I mean? Nobody was booking anything. It was like everybody that is somebody or that had money or finances or whatever did, everybody's got home studios now, and so, big studios like that, they were kind of, quiet and dusty during COVID. It was, like anything else, like from the McDonald's drive-through to the highest grade studios in the world, everybody was shut down. So we had access to one through a friend of a friend, and if it wouldn't have been for COVID, we wouldn't have been in that studio cutting this record because everybody else in the band, other than me and Tommy, are hired guns. They've been on the Nashville circuit for years. Right. So they're either on a bus or a plane or they're playing down on Music Row, and all of that came to a screeching halt. So, again, another bad situation made something good happen for us. You know what I mean? Yeah. Not that we were capitalizing on it, you know what I'm saying? It just happened to be the silver lining on the cloud, you know.
Right. You know, it's funny you mentioned Eddie Trunk, because that, you know, I think, you know, as a listener of the show, that's kind of where I've heard, you know, the Resist and Bite and picked up the record and stuff like that. But I actually saw him down, he was grabbing a couple of drinks, actually. He was drinking each hand, and he was heading in to see you guys for the first performance, which at that point, I think you guys had like 12, it was like 12:15 or something, so...
Yeah, it's after midnight. Yeah.
Right, so after a long day.
Oh, you were on the ship.
Yeah, I was on the ship. Okay. Yeah. So as far as you know, as far as catching what was the last band that I was going to see that day, I mean, you definitely have to dig deep, because at that point it's like, man, God, I mean, I've been at it since, like, you know, early afternoon.
Yeah, bro. But, yeah, I mean, we were the same way. You know, I was like getting ready to go on stage and like yawning. I'm like, this is not happening. Midnight, really?
Right.
You know, that's funny.
But great performances both times. I mean, both down at the theater and then the pool stage. So, I mean, I think reception was great. I think, you know, I like what you guys are doing, because I think you're definitely performing the material, you know, that you need to perform, and then include, you know, a couple Tesla things. I mean, I love the fact that you didn't rely a whole lot on the Tesla stuff.
So, I mean, we have to tip the hat, you know what I mean, for sure, you know.
Right.
And we want to tip the hat, you know, not forever, you know. And Tommy's actually very, you know, he has no problem talking about that, and I frankly don't either. You know, it's like, you know, how long would Dave Grohl go playing Nirvana? You know what I mean? You got to tip your hat to pay honor to a good portion as to why you've even gotten that exposure. And then after a while, you got to like, okay, you know, can we not do that anymore? You know what I mean? Because we still have so much. Like, I'll be honest with you, we've got about 3 records worth of material that's already been demoed.
Oh.
I mean, we are by no means. This is not something that we're going to go, great, it didn't work out, all right, let's stop. That's not this band. This is kind of like my swan song situation. I really have no intentions of dredging into any other new rock and roll bands. You know what I mean? This is going to be the one for me, and we're just going to make it work. And we could have 8 albums that do nothing, but we will have 8 albums that will do nothing. That's what it's going to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not about trying to be famous. It's not about trying to be rich. It's about really expunging the last of this I have in my life, you know, and I'm going to do it with this unit. It's a great unit. Yeah.
Overall, thoughts on the fans' reaction to Resist and Bite? Because again, you know, being out there watching the band, I think, you know, there was definitely less people at the midnight plus performance because of the time.
Yeah, right.
But the pool stage, I mean, you guys blew that up.
That was killer. Yeah. That was a great show, dude. The pool stage was, to me, that was the bell ringer. You know, I think we got some attention that night. And God bless everybody that freaking made it out to the freaking first night, because I don't think we were there. You know,
right.
It was. I mean, yeah, you do the deal, dude. You did what you did that day. We did. You know, we were right there with you. So it's like everybody's like, oh, okay. And then it's like I have that theory. It's like you're drowning in a pool and someone throws you a baby. You know what I mean? That's what it was like that day. It's like, oh, okay, we got to play now. Great. All right. So that, you know. The pool gig was really awesome. The fan response was amazing. I keep hearing the same thing, though, on the song I, that's on the record. That gets a huge amount of response ever since our first show, dude. It's like right out of the freaking gate, that song is, and it's what I wanted it to do. That's definitely the intended song of the record that I'd really like to push out the forefront. You know, because it speaks a great, and it has a great thing behind it. For the whole meaning of the song is, you know, there's just so much in the world out there that needs to be taken care of, and we worry about our silly little problems. You know, get off your back and go through the world, please. You know, there's people that are handicapped and impaired in every way, shape, or form you can think of. They don't complain. They don't bitch. They do things in this world, and they achieve great goals in this world. you know, we sit and complain about if our food's cold at a restaurant when there's a kid 3 miles down the street that the only meal he's going to get is at school lunch. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I is about really taking control of your life and stop making excuses, you know, and just go through it and do it the right way. So people, not only you do it for yourself, but people see that happening, and it might rub off on them, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's good to hear that song gets a really cool response. And just a lot of feedback. We had a whole big burst of merch when we got back home on the website, which is, I'm going to hit it, resistedbite.com, you know. So there was a lot of merch that went out in the mail yesterday, today, you know, last week. Everything's been pumping a little faster from the cruise. So we were very blessed. That was actually kind of a turn of a table we needed, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I was a little pissed off that you know, you guys were selling your shirts, and my wife's like, why don't you get one of their shirts? And I'm like, I'll wait, I'll get it the next day. Well, by the time I go, they ran out of my size, so I'm like,
right.
And I'm probably one of those orders that you guys sent out because I had to order it online when I got back. But
okay, dude, you don't ever do that again. Now that you have my number, you text me whatever it is you want, and I'll send it to you. Okay?
Oh man, that might be a dangerous thing to ask, but
no, hey, we ain't got but so much, buddy.
So
that well is not but so deep. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you know, lots of good stuff here. I'm glad to hear that you guys are already demoing and writing and piecing together some stuff for some more music.
Ruben, we got some cool stuff, dude. We got some cool new tracks, man, that you'll dig.
Yeah.
Some cool stuff.
So I think what we'll do is, I'll definitely hit you up later on, and we can maybe pick things up, you know, when more stuff's happening, whether it's gigs or more music and stuff like that. But the one thing I needed to ask you, because you know, again, I'm a huge Karabi fan, so I was caught both the sets he did. Yeah, well, I saw that because then he calls you on stage after he blew his voice out,
which I was not expecting.
Right. Yeah. Right. So
I was scared like a child, dude. I was excited and scared all at the same time because I'm like, yeah, he's freaking John Karabi, dude. You know?
So how far back do you go with Karabi, or was that?
I don't.
Oh,
I tell you how far back. How far back I go with him, bro? Let's see. That was Sunday when I did that, right? 4 days.
Oh, jeez. Okay. I
met him like on that Tuesday night, that Wednesday night was when I met him, dude. And he called my name out, which made my knees buckle. He leaned out of a crowd of people sitting at a table and pointed at me and said, "Nathan, come here." And I was like, that is not even possible. I didn't even see him, you know. I mean, he was sitting behind people, and he ducked his head out from the bunch of people he was sitting there with.
That's amazing, because I think when he had you come up to sing, I think it was Man on the Moon, right? I think that's what he had you.
Yeah, Man on the Moon, which is a monumental song for me, too, dude. There's a history for me with that song. You know, after the Blonz folded, I'm sorry, hold on. That's mine. There you go. All right, so when I was in Myrtle Beach, after the Blonz had folded, and this was like right before I met my wife there in Myrtle, and I really wasn't playing music at that point. I was just kind of taking a hiatus from the whole thing. And then I met my wife. We got married, had our first kid. Then we moved back to Atlanta because me and Steve Taylor from the Blonz, it's in Pandora's Box, we formed another band. And we did that band. We were there for about a year or two. We were there for about a year or two. And then that didn't happen. And I was at that point, it wasn't jaded. I just was intelligent enough to know that, okay, you work on something like this for X amount of time. You have some very reputable people in the industry not only looking at you, you know, from labels, but also you have a management team that's got tour buses and has money and finance and this, that, and the other, and nothing's happening. So you have to break with reality and go, okay, this isn't going to happen. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to beat this. I've got a wife and kid, and I'm not going to beat this down. And she was miserable because of the rigor that's involved in new bands and what it takes to expose yourself, you know. So we moved back to the beach. Well, when we moved back to the beach, by that time, it was back in me again. So I was playing acoustically, either by myself or I usually had a couple different people that would come and play with me. And one of my go-to songs that I always thought was so great was The Scream and Man in the Moon. I love it. It's like, in my mind, one of the greatest just in my opinion, one of the greatest tunes in that era of rock and roll that was ever written. So I always played that song, and I loved singing that song. It was my wheelhouse, and just amazed by it. And so when I meet him for the first time, I lay into him about this, you know what I mean? And almost kind of girly-ish. And I was like, I got to, and I even said out loud, I was like, all right. Like Joe Pesci, I was going, okay, I'm not going to do this. You know what I mean? And we became fast friends and hung out, spent about 2 or 3 days of just hanging out. It was cool. We'd always go find him and sit there. There's this one spot that he would always sit at. I think you're probably aware of it. And so that's where we hung out most of the time. And so when I'm at the show, the last thing I expected was that, he was like, he did it. He was like, Nate, come over here. I was like, I sunk down in my chair. I was like, no. I was like, no, don't make me do this. Because even though it is like one of my favorite songs, I tell you my favorite song in the world, hands down, is Boys of Summer by Don Henley.
Okay.
That's hands down, bro. I don't care what anybody says. That's my favorite song. Man in the Moon's like right up and under there, right? So, but if I was to ask to get up and sing Boys of Summer right now, I'd go up there with all the confidence in the world, but sure as shit, I'm going to forget something because, I don't play it all the time or sing it all the time or whatever. So Man in the Moon, even though I know the song, very clearly hadn't sang it in a long time because I forgot all kinds of spaces on it. But it was fun, and that was what it was meant to be. It was meant to be just fun,
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, sorry, the long-winded conversation about that, but that's a soft spot for me, man. That was a big day for me.
Nice.
That was like a bucket. That was like something in the bucket that's really never in the bucket. You know what I mean? Like, I have a bucket list. Some of them are real. Some of them are never going to fucking happen. You know what I mean?
Right.
That was one that I was like, that's just never going to happen,
Nice.
So.
Hey, man. Well, thank you for your time, and we'll get this online on KNAC.com and get you guys links, and hope to talk again. Love the band, and hope to see you guys live again here soon. Yeah, for sure, dude. We do have some shows coming up. We're playing March 24th in Nashville. April 30th, we are in Jordan, New York at Keck's Canal Side with Stephen Pearcy and Bad Marriage. Bad Marriage was on the cruise. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, so we've got a few things popping up, and the phones are ringing. Like I said, that was a good turning of the table for us being on that cruise. Some phone calls are being made now. So.
Right. Well.
So, but go on the website, resistantbody.com, and find out any kind of info, get any kind of merch, anything like that.
Right. Well, fantastic, man. Again, thank you for your time, and we'll get this on the website and get you guys a link.
Yeah, God bless, dude, and thank you for putting up with me.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you very much.
All right, bro.
Yeah, take care.